The Ice Age never ended. You're living inside the intermission. The mammoths are gone. But the air you're breathing right now? Still Ice Age air. Look around the room you are sitting in. Look at the walls keeping the elements out, the thermostat regulating the temperature, the screen glowing in front of you. It all feels incredibly permanent. You have spent your entire life believing a very specific, very comforting story about the world. You've been taught that humanity survived the deep freeze, that we crawled out of a frozen wasteland millennia ago, and that we now exist in a stable, post-Ice Age reality. We built farms, then sprawling megacities, and then massive global supply chains, all completely dependent on the assumption that the ice is dead and gone forever. But that warmth you feel on your skin right now, it is entirely temporary. It is borrowed time. Evidence shows that human civilization didn't actually conquer the Earth's climate. We just got exceptionally historically lucky. We didn't build our modern world because we suddenly became smart enough to defeat the cold. We built it because the planet simply paused its ancient freezing cycle. For the last 11,700 years, humanity has been thriving in a warm pocket of time that geologists call the Holocene epoch. It sounds like a definitive era, a permanent victory condition for our species. But when you pull back the lens, the reality is far more fragile. The Holocene is just a microscopic, fleeting warm spike. It is a textbook interglacial period, a brief intermission in a theater of ice. Every single thing we consider human history happened inside this gap. Every empire that rose and fell, every world war, every single technological leap from the invention of the wheel to the launching of satellites, it all took place inside this tiny, fragile window of planetary mercy. We are a species that survived the cold, currently running rampant through a brief, accidental summer. And right now, underneath the concrete of our cities, and deep within the currents of our oceans, the massive, crushing engine of the Pleistocene Ice Age is still quietly running, waiting for the intermission to end. You probably think an ice age means the entire globe is swallowed by a solid shell of frost, turning Earth into a dead, white snowball. And since there isn't a mile-high sheet of ice crushing the skyline of New York City or London right now, the Ice Age must be definitively over. This is the great illusion of our time. We are fundamentally wrong about what an ice age actually is. To a geologist, an ice age isn't defined by woolly mammoths roaming the tundra, or a frozen equator, or early humans shivering around a cave fire. It is defined by a single, brutally simple metric: whether or not there are permanent, year-round ice sheets sitting on the planet's poles. That is the entire diagnostic test. If the Earth has ice caps, the Earth is in an ice age. It is a binary state. Right now, researchers know that Antarctica and Greenland are buried under millions of cubic miles of permanent ancient ice, ice that has been sitting there, unbroken, for millennia. Therefore, Earth is technically, indisputably, still in an ice age. Specifically, we are living deep inside the Quaternary glaciation, a massive global freeze event that began over 2.5 million years ago. Within this ongoing glaciation, the climate doesn't just stay at one constant, punishing temperature. It breathes. It oscillates in massive, slow-motion cycles driven by celestial mechanics. These are called Milankovitch cycles, subtle shifts in the shape of Earth's orbit, the tilt of its axis, and the wobble of its poles as it travels around the Sun. When these orbital dynamics pull our hemisphere slightly farther from solar radiation, the ice advances. Glaciers miles thick grind their way across continents, obliterating forests, carving out valleys, and drastically lowering global sea levels. We call these long, brutal stretches glacials. But when the orbit eventually tilts us back toward the Sun, the ice violently retreats, the oceans swell, and the planet enjoys a brief, golden flash of warmth. We call these short, humid respites interglacials. This is the ruthless heartbeat of our planet. Advance, retreat, crush, release. It has happened dozens of times over the last 2 million years. We didn't defeat the ice, we just happened to build our houses while the tide was out. But if that's true, if we are just coasting through a temporary warm cycle within a 2 million-year-old deep freeze, why haven't we frozen over again? History tells a very dark story about these warm spikes. The geological record shows that previous interglacials usually only lasted about 10 to 15,000 years before the ice inevitably returned to reclaim the land. We are currently right at the 11,700-year mark of our own Holocene summer. The math suggests our time should be up. The glaciers should be reforming. The ice should be marching south right now. Actually, the ice isn't returning anytime soon, and it's not because the natural cycle decided to spare us. We might have accidentally broken the planet's ancient heartbeat entirely. Evidence shows that right as the Earth's orbital clock was slowly winding down, preparing to plunge us back into a deep, continent-crushing freeze, human civilization forcefully intervened. By discovering fossil fuels and aggressively pumping massive amounts of ancient, buried carbon dioxide back into the atmosphere, we haven't just warmed a stable planet, we have artificially intercepted the next glacial advance. Many scientists argue that our immense industrial footprint has overpowered the Milankovitch cycle's natural cooling effect, essentially canceling the scheduled return of the ice for perhaps another 50,000 years. We didn't just survive the intermission, we jammed the gears of the global climate engine, locked the theater doors, and refused to let the next frozen act start. When you zoom out and look at the deep time history of the Earth, a startling irony begins to take shape. Humanity is, fundamentally, an Ice Age species. Our earliest ancestors didn't evolve in a stable, tropical paradise, nor did they rise up during a calm, predictable epoch. Homo sapiens were forged in the brutal, erratic climatic swings of the Pleistocene. Our unique evolutionary advantages, our extreme physical adaptability, our complex social structures, our mastery of fire and tools, were all direct, desperate responses to a violently unstable, freezing planet that was constantly trying to extinguish us. The human brain was uniquely optimized to solve the problems of a frozen world. We are the ultimate survivors of the cold, a species engineered by the ice itself. But look at the present day. The very same hyperintelligence that allowed us to survive the freezing nights of the deep past has now manufactured a terrifying, entirely unprecedented reality. In our relentless drive to never be cold again, to never be vulnerable to the crushing whims of the planet's icy cycles, we constructed a massive global industrial machine that is rapidly suffocating the atmosphere in carbon. We have effectively turned our fragile, temporary planetary lifeboat into a runaway hothouse. The ancient ice sheets of Greenland and Antarctica are currently bleeding massive amounts of fresh water into the oceans, collapsing the exact structures that define the era we were born into. What this reveals about our place in the universe is profound. We are no longer just small, insignificant passengers riding the slow, massive waves of the Earth's ancient orbital clock. We have elevated ourselves into a titanic geological force in our own right, wielding the power to overwrite millions of years of celestial mechanics. We were born into a theater of ice, but we have violently hijacked the script, choosing to permanently alter the chemistry of the sky rather than surrender to the natural, inevitable return of the glaciers. We didn't conquer the Ice Age, we just built a fire so massive that we are melting the planet to keep the cold from coming back.